Today is the first day of this November 1983 7-day retreat, and we will work on a koan taken from the Mumonkan, as translated with some changes taken from other translations, by Zenkai Shibayama from the book Comments on the Mumonkan. Before starting with the koan, a few words about listening to a talk. There were some people here who have not been to a retreat before, or not been to one in a long time. In any ways, can one listen as though one had not heard such comments before? There's the thought, I've heard it before. One is occupied with what one has heard before as with an old gramophone record. And there's not this unqualified, unconditioned openness to just listening without approval or disapproval, agreement or disagreement. Allowing space to see within oneself what it is that is being talked about, because it is never about something or someone out there or a long time ago, but here, what is going on right here within myself is something discernible, detectable. And that needs this undistorted listening without any prejudice, for or against, without opposition, resistance. It's very helpful if one can find for a talk a posture or bench cushion combinations which one can sit fairly relaxed, without strain, meaning without strain, which causes pain and tension. If strain and tension arises, it's all right to change the posture. Can one do it quietly, unobtrusively? Which is helpful both to oneself and to everyone around, because then the movement, the motion comes out of attention. Which communicates. Attention has a way of communicating. If you ask, what is it that is communicated? Nothing. No thing. The title of this koan is Joshu Sees the True Nature of Two Hermits. In another translation, it just simply says Joshu sees two hermits. And why not drop this true nature, which can be the source of so much misunderstanding? We just talked about what is it that is being seen or communicated in attention. If then you say, well, my true nature, then this becomes something that I must have, that I must see, I must find, I must transmit, I must help others find. It's always a thing. but there is no thing. True self is no self. So Joshu sees two hermits. Hermits being at all times and all religions, some people who seek solitude to contemplate, pray, look within themselves, question, whatever, living by themselves. Someplace in the woods, mountains, or in the desert. Or is not the hubbub of village life, city life, daily life. Well, there is daily life in the life of a hermit. But not needing to relate to others. Bosses or underlings, or co-workers, or husband or wife, children. Joshu was a Zen teacher who traveled throughout China for some 50 years before he settled down to have a monastery and teach in a settled way. And this koan may be taken from the time that he was just traveling around, visiting teachers, hermits. Wonder how he knew where they were? Maybe it was known in this such and such a place, and on such and such a mountain there is a little hermitage, and there is someone sitting. And these people he visited. Joshu came to a hermit and asked, "Are you in? Are you in?" The hermit held up his fist. "The water is too shallow here to anchor a vessel," said Joshu, and went away. Then he came to another hermit and called out, "Are you in? Are you in?" This hermit also held up his fist. "You are free either to give or to take away, either to kill or to give life," said Joshu, bowing to him. Another translation says, and made a profound bow. That's the end of this koan, of the case. Just these two brief visits. Seems to be almost like a scientific experiment. All the variables are constant. The hermit, the question, the answer, the leaving. So what's the difference? Oh, is that already a conditioned question? No, there is a difference. The response of Joshu is different in both cases. Whether the holding up of the fist was the same or different, we don't know. That's what a koan does. It gives you all kind of very meager fare. And it's up to you to enter into the scene yourself. Look at it from all kinds of sides and notice the limitation of seeing sides. And seeing if this whole thing can't reveal itself as a whole. The meaning of it, the significance of it. Mumon's commentary says both held up their fist. Did he approve the one and disapprove the other? Tell me, Where is the core of the complication? If you can give a turning word on the point, a turning word meaning a word of understanding, if you can give a turning word on the point, you will see that Joshu is unrestrained in saying what he wants to say and utterly free either to help the one rise up or to push the other one down. It's Mumon's comment. Be that as it may, do you know that it was Joshu, on the contrary, whose true nature was seen by the two hermits? If you say that the one hermit is superior to the other, you have not yet got the Zen eye. Or if you say there's no difference between the two, you have not yet got the Zen eye either. We'll go into all of these things, that what Zen eye is and so forth, or is not. Mumon's poem, his eye is like a shooting star, his spirit is lightning, a sword to kill, a sword to give life. Joshu came to a hermit and said, "Are you in? Are you in?" Hermit just raised his fist. Let us enter into that hermitage, little shack. Very likely not too soundproofed, so he could already hear the footsteps approaching. Sitting there is the mind speculating. Who is it? Is a robber? Maybe a robber. Because one reads that hermitages were at times burglarized. Wasn't much to take, but people do break into enclosures. In sitting and hearing a sound, can one tell the difference between just listening to this or making something out of it, interpreting it, thinking of a burglar, thinking of a visitor, and what this arouses in the body? And can all this be within this wide open realm of attention? If it happens to you when you hear a sound and you notice that you've already interpreted, you've already said it's rain dripping from the roof, it's not the same as drip, 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 drip. In the case where there's no interpretation, or the interpretation has been detected and does not take hold of body-mind, then there's openness to listen. And the sound is not the sound. And it doesn't arouse resistance or attraction. It's just that. The door is opened and someone standing in the door asking, "Are you in?" And the fist goes up. Now you may say, "I would never have raised my fist. Anybody asks me, 'Are you in?'" I may have said, "Of course I am." Or just gotten up and shaken hands. How are you? Who are you? Nice to see someone here. Haven't seen anybody in years. Want a cup of coffee? Something. This sort of has a smack of something foreign, maybe, of Zen. A smack of Zen. Fists raised, fists coming down, is a conditioning of that particular tradition. In another tradition, a similar question, a different response may be given because one has been exposed to certain responses. Not everybody shakes hands. Some people put hands palm to palm. I understand in India this is the salutation. When one goes through vast amounts of people, one doesn't even take the hands apart because one greets everybody this way. In Japan, here people shake hands. Not all. In Germany, you shake hands much more freely with many more people. Many more occasions. So the question is not, what is this nature of response? What is the kind of response, the content of it? Because here I'm a Zen student, I better remember that. Because somebody may sometime ask me, are you in? Then I want to respond right. It's not the form. It's not the form of the response, but where does it come from? Does it come out of this very thing I just mentioned? Having kept that in mind, and then responding out of a repertoire of responses that have been remembered? That is not the meaning of being in. It doesn't answer this question of Joshu's. Are you in? What is he asking? He isn't saying, are you home? Because obviously he is. He doesn't say, are you inside the hut versus outside the hut? Are you in? We don't have to go literally by these words. But what is the state of mind that is questioned, that is challenged? If the hermit, the person sitting there, oneself sitting there, has any idea of what I should respond with, what I should say, it's not being in. It's being in an image of what I should do. I'm trying to quickly scan, and the brain can do that very quickly, all possible responses. Or I'm blocked. I'm embarrassed. I don't know really what he wants. And I have forgotten the right response. Darn it. But there's no right response. There's only no image of who I am and who he is. The image that he is a man of superior attainment, superior qualities, can already put a block on the chest and throat, and nothing comes out, even though maybe one wants to say something. But the awe of this superior being who comes trotting in this time of night, knocking and saying, are you in? Oh my God. Just a pounding heart, and I know at this point there should be a good response, but I can't bring it up, bring it off. Because there's an image, that's why I can't bring it off. An image of myself as being inferior, as being something that should do something, or someone that should do something. And the image of the questioner as expecting something. And much more than that, as the one to mete out approval and disapproval, acceptance or rejection. And the very blink of a thought of rejection can again block the body-mind. One has been rejected so many times, and the hurt lingers and paralyzes a free responding. Seeing that person at the door as someone to validate me, make me feel worthwhile. Then too my response will be affected by that. I'll say something which I hope will satisfy him. If it does, I'm fine. If it does not, where am I? Shattered? Hurt? Depressed because of this overwhelming feeling of not being worthwhile in the eyes of someone that I think is somebody. Are you in? Is it possible to respond from nowhere, which means no images? Or if an image comes up, it is seen and diffused in the seeing. To respond from a mind which, conventionally put, is undeluded. Undeluded about itself or others. Just bare facts. A simple question and a simple answer. Not given to impress, to establish status, to show him I am just as good as you are. That's all more imagery. We're beset by it in our daily life. And out of this comes our misery of moods, comes our elation and our hatred of others. Because if I'm not as good as someone else, I hate myself for it. And then I hate the other person who has what I don't have, or seems to have. There's already an enormous basic assumption in all this, namely that there is another person, that other person is independent of myself. And his mind is something that belongs to him exclusively, and my mind is something that belongs to me exclusively, and is up for comparison. Maybe no difference between mind and mind. Either there are thoughts which are not my or your thoughts, or there's no thought. And a state of no image is not mine, that's an image. In the opening talk last night we were touching upon defensiveness, which if one looks at it very thoroughly, with really great interest, because it is the problem of one's life, not just one's life, but of the life of human beings. This identification with images. One may see that what one defends at the moment of seeming attack is the image of oneself. Or what one tries to project and put forth is likewise an image. To someone of whom one has an image of being interested in this image, impressed by it, which may or may not be so. So the fist has been raised. Are you in? And the raising of the fist, a particular form of a response, which the koan doesn't say where it comes from, whether it's a learned response or a conditioned response, or a free one, albeit having a certain form peculiar to a certain culture or tradition. Oh, we can't even assume that. Who has sat as a hermit for years, and then somebody coming in and saying, "Are you in?" Maybe this response would come to someone who'd never heard of Zen. I don't know. Important thing is it free, not anchored in anything, and not expecting any result, and not dreading failure. It is freely given to no one particular, and coming from no one particular. Is that possible? We don't know, but we can't say, no, it is not. It may happen on its own. This is how a free response comes about. It is unpremeditated. And Joshu says to the first hermit, the water's too shallow here to anchor a vessel. Another translation, it says, to anchor a big vessel. What does one do with this response? First of all, one must understand on the verbal level, what is he saying? The water's too shallow. Here, there's pretty shallow state of affairs in this cabin. Meaning, of course, the mind of the hermit. Mind is pretty shallow. Too shallow for a big vessel to anchor here. Which would mean for big shot like myself to stay around. You and I have nothing much in common. It's not worth my while to hang around. It doesn't say quite as grossly as this. If it was too gross a response, well, I don't know. It may not even hit the most sensitive person. It seems so out of proportion. But if it's more subtle, too shallow here to anchor a vessel. All that depends on the state of mind of this person sitting there. It just responded. Is there an expectation of approval? any expectation of anything. If there is, this responds, what does it do? Too shallow here to anchor. Goodbye. How does one feel when one has worked hard on something? One isn't quite sure how it came out, but one thinks it's pretty good. Partly depends on how it will be received. And it's not received well at all. One is criticized. Deficiencies pointed out, weak spots. It's so difficult to take, isn't it? It is difficult the moment one is identified with one's answer or one's work. It's mine, and approving that as approving me, stroking me, disapproving it as giving me a kick. Because I am this work, which is a fabrication of the human mind. This identification with everything. Starting my body, my looks, my brains or lack of brains, my behavior, my talents and capacities. And with this identification comes this tremendous vulnerability to be hurt or to be flattered. Both of them equally dangerous, poisonous, in a way, if it means elation today and depression tomorrow, constantly teeter-tottering between the two. If there is no image, are you in? Yes or no, or the hand goes up, or nothing said. And then comes this response, and that is heard, taken in its entirety. And the taking in is whole too, because it is not cut up by images. Then what hurt can ensue? Or what counter-hurt could come out of this? You too don't seem to be very deep to me, would be our normal way of responding. Either one says it or one thinks it. You don't have so much yourself. And then for a moment there's a relief because the anger and hurt has been fed into some kind of a response, verbal and physical, and as a moment of release, but the thing has not been settled in any way because hurt has responded and has been affirmed and further deposited in mind. The incident sits there and waits for another day. But if there's just listening to the whole thing, what comes up, what wants to come up or does come up, but it's seen, it's listened to, it's heard, attended to. And so is what is being said, the approval or the disapproval. Then the whole thing is forgotten very quickly, sometimes immediately. It's not chalked up in the brain. Joshu goes to another hermit, asks the same questions and the same response, and he says, you're free to give, on another translation, freely you give and freely you take away, freely you bestow life, freely you kill. and made a profound bow. This thing of somebody bowing to one in respect, in awe, in gratitude. Why does Joshu do that? This praise of, it's also a Zen form of expressing himself, but it has meaning to give life and to take it away. To kill, now what is it? To give or to take away, to kill or to give life. Or to die. To die and to live. Free to die and free to live. Dying to what? To all ideas of doing right, doing the right thing, being rewarded, being somebody in somebody's eyes. Is it possible to die to all images of oneself? In this work of who or what? Who am I? What am I? Or mu? Or attending to breathing? Or just questioning without any word? Is it possible to die to all images of the doer, the meditator, or the sitter, the successful sitter or the unsuccessful sitter? Free to die? Or is it an effort to die? Then it's not dying, then it's just making a new kind of an effort to be somebody who dies freely. And free to live in no particular garment, no pretense. That takes attention, awareness of the garments that come up. The pretenses that are so habitual. But they can be seen, that's a fact. They can be seen. If they aren't seen, our actions are shaded and toned and distorted by them. If they're seen, there's not this automatic impact. So here there's this amazing little story of Joshu going around. Since we don't know what these two fists looked like, what these two responses were, whether one was a learned response and the other one was free, we can't assume anything. All the Koan tells us it was the same thing in both cases. And Joshu in one case praising, in another case putting down. Did he mean it? Did he see something that an ordinary person doesn't see? So whatever he says I must take for the truth because he's a great teacher, revered, famous. So many koans about him, including Mu. They have the tremendously deeply engraved, deeply inbuilt tendency to take what the teacher says as being the truth. After all, he wouldn't be there if he didn't know So I'll rely on that, because a lot of people have acclaimed or acknowledged him as a great teacher. And this means I don't have to look for myself. I can assume and go along with what a great teacher says. But Joshu may not have meant that at all. May not have been praise or blame. It's up to the person to whom this is said, what he or she makes out of that. He just says some words, like floating freely in the air. Why do they have to hit any target? If we are a target, then they hit. If we're not a target, they don't hit. They're just there like the spring breeze. But one cannot assume this either. It's all up to one to see. I'm this hermit. Someone just says, too shallow, no good. Let me look. Where does this response come from? And it can be seen instantly whether there was an image, there was a desire to impress, or that was not there. And if it was not there, it doesn't matter what somebody else tells me was there. Says all kinds of things about me. That's his or her problem. Here it's clear what was there or what wasn't there. Does one have that clarity, or at least feels the urgent need for that? So one is not a puppet in someone else's hands. But just to say I'm not a puppet and fight others or oppose or resist, that is just a reactionary puppet. It can only come out of really seeing what is going on. Yes, yeah. So it was just a response to impress. One can see that, and that's the end of it. Or it was not. Sometimes much more difficult to look when there is this gushing of praise and the bow, the expression of awe, reverence, or being looked up to. Because human beings crave this. One has been put down so much, one has been a child for such a long time, the others always towering over one, beginning with older brothers and sisters, parents, teachers, and now one is towering oneself. This seems to make up for all the past insults and injuries and humiliations. But if one watches carefully, this is a pit which is never filled. There's never enough of that. Because the wound has not healed. And cannot heal with praise. No wound can heal by praise. Can only heal by being seen whole. The seeing being whole. Not I want to get rid of it, I want to do something about it, but to feel it. To be with it. Not with self-pity or pampering or or any such response, just plain bare feeling it. No identity established as the victim, the sufferer. That's no healing. The wound is nourished by that. And then when there is no wound, then praise is shallow. And one understands where it comes from. Namely, the other person also wanting a friend and thinking this is a way to make one, which is not a way of making friends through praise. It's too shallow. Or the other one wanting to feel his or her superiority by being the one who can mete out praise. One sees that. This person is no longer a life giver and a death dealer. It is an ordinary human being with his or her own conditioned needs. Or is it like here, Joshu, just freely doing this, playing with it as it were, even though it's a serious game? He doesn't do it to butter someone up or to put someone down. It was this way at that time in Chinese history, Zen, of working together. Both of them intimately involved in this, and either face to face and therefore no visitor and no hermit, just one mind. Or else the images that either one sees and works with or one is ignorant of, and therefore nothing has happened. One continues the same way, defending and attacking. We already dealt with part of the commentary which says both held up their fists. Why did you approve the one and disapprove the other? Tell me, where's the core of the complication? Things always become complicated when we start thinking about it, trying to figure it out through thinking. If hermit and Joshu and oneself is clearly seen, there's no complication. Then it's simple, evident, obvious, there, out in the open. Whatever the response was of anyone. No, I should have, or he should have, or shouldn't have. That's complicated. He says, you can see that Joshu is unrestrained in saying what he wants to say and utterly free to either help the one rise up or push the other one down. He's not free to raise one up and push the other one down if the other one is not upraisable or pushed downable. Then they're not even two. And if he does it because he sees it as his mission to raise people up or push them down, then there's a real motive and therefore his own satisfaction to make sense of his life, which seems so senseless. I must do something meaningful. I can tell my relatives what I'm doing. They're always asking me, what are you doing? I can't give them any satisfactory answer. What is true freedom in work? One thing, if it's there, it just needs to be done. It may be pleasant, enjoyable, or it may not be enjoyable at times. Is there this freedom to do it without what will it bring me? Then there's problems, because it may or may not. But particularly here, we've veered off some with this thing of helping others. Maybe we should have a whole talk on that sometime. This very gratifying and promising and luring idea of helping others, being free to help others, without looking very subtly and thoroughly if there's a motive there for myself, and then it's not help. That already taints this help. Because I want also approval. I want to see results in you. Or else, if I don't see results in you, this reflects on my ability to help. And there's tension. Not this free-flowing, how does it say here? Unrestrained. Saying it, if it does something, it does something. If it doesn't do something, it doesn't. But it's not my fulfillment that it does. Help. Then there's no strings attached. And there's freedom to talk and freedom to listen, without entering into mutual commitment and all of those obligations to be a good student, to be a good teacher, which is trouble in the short run and certainly in the long run. Goes on here, be that as it may, do you know that it was Joshu, on the contrary, whose true nature was seen by the two hermits, or who was seen by the two hermits. He's just as visible there in his door, are you in, as the fist is visible, or the hermit sitting there. If there's nothing projected onto him, can the mind be free not to project, just to look? We think through projection we'll see something, but through projection we hide what's there. What's really standing there and talking? Take in the whole thing, not just certain words which sort of fall into certain conditioned slots, praise and blame. But listening to them, without already cringing as he starts, or blossoming as he starts, be it the praise or blame. But listen to the whole thing, so open. Is that possible? Let's try it. I'll find that our relationship will change among ourselves, among each other, if we can listen like this to each other. Not immediately cringe and prepare for counterattack or defense before the whole sentence has even been said. Listening to the whole thing, and then some more time. Taking it in, observing what goes on inside. And maybe observing what goes on with the other person after he or she has said what he or she has said. The end has never been reached. It's an ongoing, flowing process. What was said at one moment may be discarded or left behind at the next. May not have been adequate and may be seen as not having been adequate, so one drops it. One is not bound by words, but is always fresh to look what is really there. Because the words are never what is really there, they're only an abstraction of it. Now he says, if you say one hermit is superior to the other, he says you have not yet got the Zen eye. Let's just say you don't see. You just compare. One hermit is this and the other is that, and this is this and that is that. What is superior and what is inferior? These are our mental standards, which may not apply at all. They may apply to something, to nothing. Ideas of what we think is superior, what has been drilled into us as being superior. But what is this whole human being? And this whole human being, I don't know. If we live together, it's something different all the time, changing under different conditions. Not today what he or she was yesterday. Particularly if there's this openness of relationship, this openness of listening and talking, then superior and inferior become totally irrelevant. Except if you have aptitude tests for certain technological skills, or playing piano, one person more facility or more artistic expression, but this already becomes a matter of taste again. There are some places where it's applicable, but there are other places where it's only a division and a alienation. Then he says, if you say there's no difference between the two, you also don't see. What he's talking about here is this ideal, the ideal of equality that we cherish so much, which is an ideal. This person's like this person's like this person's like this. Each individual is in one way completely unique, and yet we all share this uniqueness. We're all unique, we all share that. But the concept, the ideal of equality can just be as much of a veil over one's eyes to see clearly who is before one and who oneself is, than if one says everyone is different. No idea, no ideal, no concept, but looking and communicating with or without words. Then everything is revealed as one moves along together. And ideals have no place, because they just blur the vision, and they are like ear stoppers. So does one sit down on the mat, saying to oneself, I must see clearly or else my seeing is distorted? That's more ideals. Or can there just be listening to the breathing? Really listening. Not to the breathing, but to the whole thing. Questioning who or mu, which means I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know what mu is. Or what, which is just this expression of I don't know. And if I don't know, then there is openness, because I have no preconceived, precluded ideas. I don't know. Or who? Or what? I don't even know what breathing is. Let me listen to it. In the midst of what is going on, inside and out,